Our next subtopic is what are the main sources of conflict? And here we're looking at the negative effects. Careful points to consider when we're looking at the negative effects is the adverse effect to both individual and organization. The fact, if not dealt with constructively, it can create mayhem. And also just looking at conflict and how it can negatively cause a downhill spiral, destroying what would have been built over a protected period of time. Let's look at our first kind of point under this section. And here we're looking at the destruction and uncontrollable effects when it comes to conflict. This can be characterized by what conflict can bring from a negative perspective. And we're looking at the following being its destruction and obviously the uncontrollable situations that can emerge in and around conflict. And these two can have a negatively impacting effect on individuals and organization. Looking at creating ineffective working groups, and this being a negative effect. Generally, when conflict is processed in a negative manner, it can adversely result in a lack of cohesion among varying working groups or teams. Another negative effect could be the cause of productivity being made to suffer, where conflict can result in productivity suffering if not handled correctly. It can reduce the exchange of ideas and information. In other words, it can cause a blockage in that environment. Conflict can cause people to go into a shell and not want to communicate effectively. People become withdrawn. People become reluctant to share ideas and information freely. The environment becomes paralyzed. It lacks the necessary stimulation in creating value. It can have an effect of animosities developing, symptomatic to or disturbing relationships when it comes to animosities. Issues of disunity among team members, hostilities amongst peers, enmity between manager and subordinate, antagonism between management and the workers, bad blood between former friends. And so that's the negative side of conflict and its impact. It could be the breakdown of communication. Conflict can be the cause of breakdown of communication as a result of the following: what is perceived as being spoken, or even what's not spoken. People may have different interpretation of those. Next point would be the divergent thinking between different parties. Another point would be the different beliefs and values that are clashing. Another point could be the nonverbal messaging. And in this section, the last point would be poorly constructive communique. Could be via press statements, emails sent between colleagues, letters sent from the head of department to the rest of the team, a misinterpreted phone call that was made by a manager to a subordinate. The effects could be that it diminishes trust and support. And conflict can impact individuals and organizations in resulting in a lack of trust in the team, diminishing confidence between peers, a lack of conviction to follow through with new emerging ideas. And our last point on this subsection is competition. Strife can solicit negative competition, strife amongst the team, strife amongst members, strife amongst managers. It could be a discord disrupting what was once a harmonious environment, and now the disruption creates chaos and mayhem within that environment. It could be contention where the individual becomes greater than the collective efforts of the group, where we get the people that become prima donnas, whilst looking at their own interests, but not fully understanding and embracing the interests of the group. The group ought to be always greater than the individual interest. But at times, people will sometimes show up where they want their individual interest to become greater than the group. And so conflict emerges. And that creates a negative effect on the group.